Hi everybody, it's Jackie Schomburg-Abstract, and I'm doing another grid journal today. You guys are all about grid journals, and I was going to save this for a different week, but I decided why not give everyone what they want, which is more grid journals. This little scrap on the top of my sketchbook, the yellow, I guess it's like a rusty red, a light bluish green, gray, and pink was my inspiration. I wanted to see how this color palette would work. So that's all I'm going on for this grid journal. Okay, I'm tracing out my squares. I'm getting pretty good at just eyeballing this, right? I don't do anything super special, but my years and years of being too lazy to find a measuring stick or a ruler has resulted in a pretty good eyeballing of tracing a business card. So I'm just mixing up some colors here. You can't see it because I've zoomed in on the sketchbook itself rather than the paint colors. So sorry about that. It's all a mystery of what's going to come off the palette. And I typically don't use yellow. I'm not really sure why. It's just a color that typically falls off my palette. I use green more than I use yellow. And obviously I like red. Shout out to SWL if you're watching this video. Now that I know that you hate red and pink, you're gonna love this one. Um, Starting off pretty big with this pink, and this is just pyrrole red with some white. And I may have added a tiny bit of yellow ochre in here because I now can't see my palette, so I'm not exactly sure what I added, but I think it might just be pyrrole red and white. And the first colors I'm adding, I'm trying to take up some space in these grids just so I can always cover over it. And in fact, I do cover over a significant amount of this pink. But you got to start somewhere. I have so much fun with these grid journals. Thanks to Kelly Wynn that I know what to call them now. So shout out to you. And some red. I'm using different brushes here. I started out with a very small, like a 1-inch color shaper. And this is just a dry, round brush. I want it to be a little, I don't know, I can think of a thing rough. A little frizzy. There's a better word for this that I'm not thinking of. You guys know what I'm saying. There's some loose ends on the brush. I use my hairdryer a lot in these grid journals because I want to keep moving. I want to keep things going. And acrylic paint dries so quickly that most of the time it takes me less than 30 seconds to dry off what I'm doing. When I use paint brushes over color shapers, it does take me a little bit longer because sometimes, right, there's just a thicker layer of paint. This is some green gold. I decided to go in with some pretty bright, some may call it obnoxious green. But it's fun to mix this with pink and red. And at this point, I was still like, do I really want to use yellow? Maybe I can get away with just this color. This is a black china marker. Wanted to add some contrast. And in each square, my goal is to add something to the square that didn't exist there yet. So if right, so I mean, obviously there was no black there yet, but also there was no thin line. And this is the thinnest line so far, is this black line. And as I'm adding my shapes, I'm adding curly cues and loop-de-loops to squares that don't have those. This is some of my Celadon Titan Green Pale, by the way. See, already covering up some of that pink and red. But I'm specifically adding shapes that hopefully don't just duplicate what's on the page. And if they do duplicate what's in there, hopefully it does it at a smaller scale or a larger scale than what's already there, just to make it different. I always want to be adding things that are different. Now with the Celadon color, I'm able to color block a bit. So I'm able to cover over some details that I don't want, or maybe that don't add anything according to me in that moment of decision. And in that middle square right there, I really like those little flower petal shapes that I added by using the back of a different paintbrush. Always like carving into paint and revealing what's underneath. So you can see that the squares that I've used the Celadon in so far, it really tames things down, right? So this is a nice neutral color and it's darker than you'd think right off the bat. I mean, it's the darkest thing in there besides the black and the red at this point. Because red is actually very dark on a value scale. If you haven't tested this, you know, look at one of the pictures of something red in black and white, and you'll see how dark it is. But once you add this neutral, it calms things down a lot, especially if you add a lot of it. And it also pushes the eye then away from the neutral toward the color and toward the contrast. So it helps to focus in on whatever you want people to look at. For some reason, I don't consciously think about that when I'm using neutrals. I don't think, what do I want to push people toward? And then cover up whatever that's not. But ultimately, as I'm looking at this now, that's what I'm doing, whether it's intentional or not. And I'm really just making this up as I go along, guys. I have no great plan for these squares. Just looking to make different compositions in each square. And someday I'm just going to get 18 tiny panels and do this as like a, not a grid journal, but like a grid panel. And just make this kind of like real life. This is real life too, but you know what I'm saying? Like a 3D version of this with actual panels, and just to try to do it quickly without thinking too much. Even with me, there's something mentally that happens when I move from paper to panels, because for some reason, even though I know intellectually it's all just play and it's all just art, it's all just paint, there is something where I notice in my brain, oh, this is a panel. Like, now I can't waste this because now it's a panel and now there's money involved, which is silly. So I'm still working myself on quieting that voice and just having fun with things. But I mean, it's there for everyone. It's just a matter of how you silence it or go about it or say, thank you, voice. That's great, but I'm willing to, spend this money on this project, so you don't need to worry about it anymore. And just move on. So me posting videos on YouTube does not make me exempt from any of those thoughts that creep into my brain. Now, of course, I'm breaking out some black and white collage, right? This is me still. Quick blast in my hairdryer to make sure that I don't smear the paint when I add this on. And it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to add here. Longer than probably usual. But again, with the grid journal, it's so easy to just try things on. And that's the beauty of collage for me. I really wanted to use this piece, and I can't remember if I ever did, but I tried so hard. You'll see it come back again. Trying a smaller one. Does that work? I really wanted this. I don't know why. Found a spot for that one though. That's good. These are very simple papers I'm adding. These are just circles. White circles on black. Some black circles on white that have not made it in. And the yellow that I added was a little bit, mixed a bit with white, just so that it wasn't so transparent. I was using Hansa yellow, which is pretty transparent otherwise. I don't like to use cadmium yellow or cadmium red. Cadmium, I believe, is a heavy metal, or something in it is a heavy metal. So there are enough artists that went a little kooky, and I don't want to be the next one. But also, since I have young kids, I just made that decision a long time ago that I wasn't going to bring, just really toxic paints into my into my house. You can get cadmium-free yellows, which are basically hues, so they look like cadmium yellow, from Liquitex and other paint manufacturers. I've just adapted to not use them, but they do make some really nice colors. And if you're using them, don't panic. Just, make sure that you're not using them in terribly ventilated places and, not licking your paintbrushes. Things like that of course you wouldn't be doing. Most of these pieces I'm adding are on tissue paper. There are a few exceptions. The black paper at the bottom that I added with those white circles drawn onto it, it was like a thick, not even a tissue, like a packing paper that was in the box with some shampoo I ordered, I think. I will save anything. If it's cool, if it's cool packing material, I will save it. I was thinking today, like, how can I tidy up my office or my art room? How can I tidy that up? And the quickest way to do it would be to throw out all of the packing materials I've collected. However, we all know that's not going to happen, so I'll let that one go right now. I was telling some friends this week, one of the things that I did when I was working in my corporate job that I was not happy or fulfilled doing at all was I decided that I would just have no budget on my art supplies. And this is like, 11 years ago. That because I didn't like my job, but I was doing it and I was earning money doing it. That's why I stayed. I figured that there has to be some upside. I was single, no kids, no anything. And I was like, all right, whenever I go to the art supply store, I'm just going to buy what I want. So I did. So I have a tremendous amount of art supplies, which is super fun. But also many of them I don't actually use because I would wait. I'm cheap. So I would wait until I get like a 40% off coupon, and then I would just go buy a set of something that I hadn't tried yet. So I would buy like a huge set of chalk pastels or soft pastels, or I would buy, a huge set of markers that I hadn't used before. And I would try these things that I may not even like, but that way the 40% was like a hefty 40% off. And I just have all these materials now from, 12 years ago that I don't use and they just take up space. So I should probably think about thinning those out. You can probably hear my voice. Even talking about getting rid of art supplies, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I can still package them up and put them out of my art room because my art room is pretty small. That way they won't take up my prime real estate over here. All right, you can tell, I'm sure, that I've switched to Neocolor crayons. The bottom tray of crayons are Neocolor II crayons for the most part, and the top tray is Neocolor I crayons. Neocolor I, not water soluble, and Neocolor II is water soluble. You can also probably see that I have very few wrappers left on those that are intact. So often I trick myself and I end up with the wrong crayon. I think I have a water soluble one and it's not, or vice versa. With the water soluble ones here, I'm taking gloss medium and painting over them with the gloss medium, which does two things. One, it kind of spreads them around as if it were water, right? Because it's clear. And it also then will set when it's dry. So once the gloss medium sets, it won't move around anymore, so I can still paint over it and do whatever I want in that square without worrying about colors blending or smearing. And obviously it softens things up too. There's no hard edges as I'm kind of fading these oranges into the pinks and whatnot. So this color palette is very different from my normal color palette. I like that it's very bright and kind of cheery, and then the Celadon still brings it down a bit, so it's not all cotton candy, but it still feels light and bright to me. This is a Pitt pen. I'm using this to make some thin details. The square on the left page, all the way at the top in the middle, reminds me of some sort of like bird drawn by a first grader with like a really goofy smile and a big eye and that big black beak sticking out to the left. In case you were wondering. Now a little turquoise. I'm adding this because I have so much red here still and some pink. And the turquoise really sets off the red and vice versa. There's still a lot going on in here, right? These are not subtle pieces. These are definitely like in your face, super bold colors. My neutral Celadon is definitely in the minority here. I decided to try to set all of these colors. So I'm using a giant color shaper, putting a thin line of gloss medium at the top and just pulling down once. I find that if you pull down once with the gloss medium, you can get away with not smearing everything down. If you try going back again, now you're pulling down color that's water soluble color that's potentially been activated by the gloss medium, and then it will smear the second time. So heads up, if you want to try it, just do it one time through. And if it doesn't pull down the way you wanted it to, or you didn't get enough, wait until everything's dry before you try it again. It's my $1 million tip for today. And by $1 million, I really just mean it won't make you cry when your art that you've been working on is now smeared down your page. Because that's not fun for anybody. And you see now, right, that orange at the top right was my Neocolor II crayon, and it's not smearing now when I'm adding the collage. See, I'm trying to add this little piece in again. Where will it go? Ta-da! That looks like a little cupcake to me now, a little cupcake with eyes. Perhaps I'm just hungry. And I mentioned that these are busy, not so much as a judgment against what I've just made, but more so to let you know that your art is whatever it is. So if you are an artist that puts a ton of detail and a ton of bright colors and a ton of just like extra, right? Your art is just extra. It doesn't mean that you're too extra and you need to calm it down unless you feel like it's too much and you want to calm it down. Then by all means, calm it down. But if you are loving all the detail and all the boldness and all the activity in your painting, then that's awesome. Then you do you, and don't let anyone else tell you you have to calm it down. It took me a while to figure that out myself and to trust myself in that. Because often, if you ask anyone for their opinion, they will tell it to you. And people who are not into bold art will be like, wow, that's a lot, but can you make it match my couch instead? Which is fine. People can have art that matches their couch, but that's clearly not what I'm making here. If anyone has a couch that matches this, please let me know. Send me a picture of your couch because I would love to see it. But it's also really fun to do these grid journals because you can make, right, 18 tiny paintings or however many you make. You can make more than that if you make smaller squares or have a bigger book. And you try on all these things, see what you like, see if you think it works, see if you like the colors together before you attempt it on like a 3 foot by 3 foot panel. If I were going to take this then and try it on a big canvas or a big panel, I wouldn't necessarily try to recreate any one of these squares, but I could use the same colors, trusting that I would find something cool when I'm using them because I have 18 pieces of evidence now. This is 18 ways that these colors worked together. Whether you like it or not, it's still evidence of how they work together. And I thought about quieting them down, and then I thought, no, I'm going to leave them. Just going to let these guys rock out. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you liked this video, please let me know. Give me a little thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Every time someone subscribes, the algorithm likes me a little bit more, which means that my art is exposed to more people. So YouTube will send my video and put it in front of other people's faces so everyone else can see it, and that helps me a ton. So thanks everyone. Have a great day.